Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Happy Monday, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
We're here today to talk about using fear to teach children, or no, wait, more accurately, not using fear to teach children.
There you go.
Should we be using fear to teach children? Still consistently in the year 2022, I hear that people say things like, or write even in college papers, things like, the problem is the child isn't at all afraid, or that child needs to be a little bit afraid. If the child was a little bit afraid, we would get further. The problem is there's no fear there.
The problem is we were all raised like this, and now I have anxiety.
Valid. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Problem is we're all raised like that, and that's why we all now have anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Therapists are in business because of that.
So fear is definitely a motivator. We make a lot of decisions out of fear. And maybe that's because we knew fear from the time we were very young, and it wasn't a pleasant experience.
Well, yeah.
And so we have a hard time thinking our way through fear. So it's like anxiety plus we are very, very motivated by fear. When you think about the decisions you've made in your lifetime, probably a good number of them were made out of fear, whether to do something, not do something, buy something, not buy something, take something, not take something. A lot of your motivation has to do with fear.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's the healthiest way to be making decisions.
I also have seen people try to teach behavior modification approaches where professionals and parents are encouraged to use fear-based tactics to get children in line. No. Children learn behavior. They need to learn the behavior. And perhaps Allison's right that when we use fear, all they're learning is fear.
Yeah. You're teaching them to be a very timid person.
You're teaching them to be afraid.
To not really think for themselves and make decisions based on what they need. They're just going to be like, okay, I'll do that. So I don't want to get in trouble. You know what I mean? I don't want the bad thing to happen that you're threatening me with, whatever it is. Like, they're just going to be like, okay, but they're not actually thinking and forming decision-making skills that way. You're just they're being made to conform to whatever it is you want.
And there's a healthy amount of conforming. There are things that keep us safe. We should be afraid to put our hand in a fire. We should be afraid to reach for the outlet, the electrical outlet. We should be afraid of certain things that are going to cause us bodily or emotional harm. But there are too many instances in which I think adults use fear to just get those children in line. And you know what? That, as Alison said, all it does is contribute to the national anxiety or international anxiety. And it doesn't teach them what they need to learn. Why I shouldn't do something shouldn't be because I'm scared. Why I shouldn't put my hand in the socket should be because I have an understanding that an electrical current can go through my body and hurt me.
Yeah.
And it's similar to, why should I stay in line as we walk down the hallway? We need to teach them they need to stay in line to keep everyone safe and that people might come in the other direction. So we stay in our line. Now, whether we actually have to stay in a line or not is debatable. I think you don't have to stay in a line if nobody else is coming. But let's say that you need them to wait before you cross the street with them when you take a walk with them.
Yes.
To look at children and say, as my grandparents or parents' generation might have said, hold my hand or you're going to get hit by a car. Instead of doing that, people should say to them, we need to hold hands to keep you safe.
Right. Well, because I feel like then, like, okay, like in your grandfather's example here, hold my hand or you're going to get hit by a car. All
No,
right,
my grandfather was the escalator is going to stop short and we're going to fall to the basement. That was my grandfather.
Oh, is this the fear of escalators? Okay.
Yes. Go on.
Okay. All right. But still. See, now Cindy's afraid of escalators.
I am.
Yeah,
am.
see? For something that's totally not true. But this whole thing of like, hold my hand or you'll get hit by a car. And now later on, you have to cross the street and there's nobody to hold your hand. You know, are you now fearful of crossing the street without having somebody with you to guide you across the street? When you could just be teaching them, like, okay, this is how we safely cross the street.
This is how
so that
we
when
safely,
they are alone, they know how to safely cross the street.
This is how we safely cross the street.
Yeah.
And I mean, they should understand or be taught to understand the cars don't stop for you all the time.
Right.
So how do we safely cross the street?
Yeah.
We wait for the green light. We make sure no cars are moving. We look both ways.
Make sure we're in the crosswalk
because
where it's safe to,
right.
Yeah.
Because the car might not always stop for you. But there are better examples of this, you know, of fear. You know, I wonder how much when people use fear, how much that contributes to behaviors like bullying.
Oh, for sure.
Children feel that they have no control. They want control. They don't know how to seek it. Children just need to understand, basically, is my bottom line. But yeah, if people are telling you to use fear tactics, a certain way you look at a child to make them afraid. Now, I have used nonverbal expressions to get my point across, but I think that they are respectful of the children, not maybe so much fear-based. Like, I will look at young children and shake my head no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So that they get the message that that's not okay.
That's not okay.
Which is very different than bugging my eyes out and flaring my nostrils.
And staring at them until they conform to whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do, which is what some people, I think, are doing, I've heard. And like, that's not teaching the child anything. Where we
live, in our Office of Licensing Regulations for Early Childhood Education, it says that you are not allowed to intimidate children. It says that in the state next door to us too. You are not allowed to intimidate children, which means you are not allowed to make them super fearful. That's intimidating.
That's what people are doing.
But don't you think that that's intimidating?
It is. Do you want somebody staring at you like that as an adult? No.
So we're not allowed to tower over them in that way. We're not allowed to, we're not supposed to anyway, do that sort of thing. You know, positive approaches reap positive things. Negativity reaps negativity. Positivity reaps positivity. And when we are kind and respectful to children while teaching them boundaries and explaining to them about behavior, we're modeling the respect and kindness and consideration that we want them to show other people. Now, here's where I get to the bullying thing, I think. If I am demonstrating a fear-based approach to getting other people to do what I want, then why wouldn't that be something some children would do because it was modeled for them? So they're going to use a fear-based approach to get the other children to do what they want them to do.
Right. And that's what a bully's goal is to get the other children to do what they want them to do. And if they see an adult being like, oh, look, she's doing that and all of us are doing it, then they're like, oh, this is a really good means to my end. You know, it works. That's just not the right thing to be teaching them in order to get to an end. Do you know what I mean? Like,
also, as a parent, I would just like to throw this out there. I guess as a teacher too. These children, as they continue to learn and grow, as a parent, I don't want them to grow up to see me as someone to be afraid of. I want them to see me as someone to be respected.
Yes.
And those are two different things. We have tied respect and fear together in our culture too. Oh, you know, make them afraid and then they'll respect. No, they won't respect. They'll just be afraid.
Well, yeah, I don't know that you're right. It is linked in our society that if I don't even know if it's the afraid part. I think people just think of the conformity maybe as the respect part, but that's not
I don't know, but I
that's
think
not
they're
it. I don't
linked.
know. Like, yeah, they are linked, but that's not the same. But it's not the same thing.
Respect and fear
That's
are not synonyms. They don't
not.
mean the same
Yeah, they're not
thing.
the same thing. And I don't think that child is really respecting you at all. They're just doing what like there's a difference there between doing what this person wants you to do and actually respecting them as a person.
The children need to respect their families, respect their caregivers, respect whatever, we want children to be respectful of adults. They need to learn respect. And how do we teach children respect? It's through kindness, consideration, mutual respect. We have to respect them.
Yeah.
When I think about adults, right, and we're in a situation with adults, like in a workplace, there's a couple of different kinds of bosses. There are ones who set up cultures of mutual respect, cooperation, and teamwork. And there are others, and we've all worked for them, I think, who have set up cultures of fear and intimidation. You can't have both.
You can't have both.
So it's either in our homes and in our classrooms going to be fear and intimidation, or respect and consideration.
Right. And as an adult, I want you to think, which one would you rather work for? Right. And if you would rather work for the one that's like about caring and collaboration, then why on earth are you instilling that in your classroom? And why are you instilling the fear in your classroom and your house if you as an adult also don't
want to live in fear? We don't want to live in fear.
What I mean? Like, so why not think of that? Like, you, an adult who can handle things maybe a little bit better than a child could, still don't want to live in fear. So why do you want everybody in your household or your classroom to live in fear?
Adults living in fear due to the actions of another human being are being emotionally abused.
Yes.
Children living in fear due to the actions of other human beings are living in emotional abuse.
Yes.
I just let a silence sit there. Nothing's wrong with your podcast.
No. Yeah. Let that sink in.
When I hear these things, I think, don't we know better now about the human psyche, about emotion, about what motivates people versus demotivates people, about what respectful treatment is versus more intimidating treatment? Like, don't we know better? But then generationally, these things hang on so strong. Generationally.
Right? Yes.
We learn in early childhood settings about acknowledging the good deeds that children do and good behavior, and emphasizing, noticing the good and rewarding the good so that they'll want to do that again.
Yeah.
And then still I hear people say, if that child was just a little afraid of the grown-ups. Why? They don't need to be afraid like that. They just need to learn the reasons why you want them to do things.
Yeah.
And the respect. And at a very basic developmental level, they need to learn that they will get more of our attention for doing good things than they will for doing inappropriate things or dangerous things.
Right. And I also want to put out there that just because a child is making, say, a mistake or maybe the wrong choice at the time doesn't mean that they don't respect you. You need to give them that safe place in order to make that mistake and that error and that decision. Not out of like, oh, but if I make that decision now, I'm in fear of getting in trouble or whatever it might be. Like, you should provide that safe place for them to learn from those mistakes. And when you have a fear-based environment, you don't have that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Those children who seem afraid of nothing.
Yeah.
I've worked with those children too, who will just run out into the middle of a street unafraid, who will have a lack of understanding of danger. There are children who have a lack of understanding of danger. And I think in that case, if we don't have the tools for whatever reason, developmental, environmental, whatever, biological, if we don't have the means by which to teach some children fear of danger or concern about danger in a way that is respectful, then our primary goal should be to keep the child safe, right?
Yes.
My goal isn't make you afraid. My goal is keep you safe.
Yes.
In our prior episode, we talked about rehearsing certain situations with children.
Yeah.
And there are some children who maybe need some practice in, this is the expected behavior when we do this. We're going to practice it. We're going to play it. I'm going to affirm and acknowledge and congratulate you and reward you in some way for doing it the way we practice when we're practicing.
When we're
And
practicing.
then when we go to do it in real life, I'm going to reward you again for doing that.
Yeah.
And there are situations in which children, due to brain development sorts of issues, may have trouble appreciating danger, understanding danger. And in that case, isn't it the case that we then just have to teach them the behavior, the expectation? I can't force a child to be afraid in a way that is not intimidating, which is against our regulations.
Yeah.
Also not really great for mental health.
Just not great for mental health. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think fear is an interesting topic overall because of how many decisions we make out of fear.
Yeah.
There are some people who make really brave decisions with themselves or their lives. But think about how old you are by the time you start to make those brave decisions. It doesn't usually happen
time
for many people. For some people, they're able to do it young, especially if they've had models in their lives of people who made courageous decisions. Then they've seen it happen. They've seen it can work out. They're more apt to do it.
They could take that leap of faith kind of thing. They know it might work out. Yeah.
Right.
That's not
but
me.
I think fear as a motivator for
No.
me is a fascinating topic. And I think it's fascinating in part because we're so tempted to use that knowledge that fear is a motivator when really we shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So I want to just circle back to what you said earlier about we were taught to fear things, and that's maybe a root of some of the anxiety that we see in the world today. And let everybody just hold on to that notion, and the fact that as an adult, if someone is purposefully intimidating you, that's emotional abuse.
Yes.
And we're just going to leave the episode right there.
Yeah.
Now is a good time too, if you haven't listened to the prior episode about rehearsing, to go do that.
Yeah, go do that. That's a good one.
And we will catch you next time on the podcast, folks.
All right. Bye, Pete.
Bye.